So you're deciding on the best that Android has to offer. You want a bleeding edge display, you want a high refresh rate, huge battery, incredible cameras, 5G support, and sitting atop that Android throne right now is the king of Samsung, the Galaxy S20 Ultra, and the new guy playing in the premium waters for the very first time, the OnePlus 8 Pro. And on a spec sheet, these phones look to be very similar, but with $500 separating these two, which phone is going to be the better buy? Are you getting $500 more with the Samsung King, the S20 Ultra? Or is the OnePlus bring enough to the game to make it worth the money? So let's first address the big elephant in the room here, and that's price. To the dismay of what appears to be quite a few people, OnePlus has answered the complaints a lot of folks had with their hardware. No wireless charging, subpar optics, and better displays. And they've answered all of those and more with the OnePlus 8 Pro, but of course, that came with a price premium going up to just about $900 at least starting. And then you've got Samsung, and perhaps the argument could be made that this versus is better to compete against, say, the S20 Plus, but I wanted to take the best that Samsung has right now, and that is the S20 Ultra. And that is an incredibly expensive device as well, coming in at just under $1,400. But that was the reason we took these two, the best of the best, the top, and wanted to put them together. All right, so let's start with design and build on the Samsung side. This is peak Samsung, and it is a behemoth phone at 6.9 inches, and I tend to gravitate towards the largest screen possible. But the 6.9-inch display feels more like a smallish tablet than it really does a big phone. And this is a personal thing, but the phone was so big, I had to replace the wireless charger in my car to accommodate a phone of this size. So taking the size out of the equation, what you've got is a beautifully made and beautiful to hold device. The combination of glass and metal, smooth edges, and a really nice weight to it makes the phone feel exactly what it is, incredibly premium. So the OnePlus, if you pick it up, it feels like a cold piece of metal. It feels beautifully industrial, if I could describe it that way. And you can see that OnePlus has put a lot of attention to little details. I love the way this phone looks and feels. I love the color options that OnePlus has. The blue version looks absolutely beautiful. These phones are very different. The design languages are certainly distinct. But when you're paying $1,000 plus for a phone and holding these both in your hands, you're not gonna feel like you got ripped off buying an inferior feeling phone. All right, so next let's talk about probably one of the most important categories for these two phones, cameras. And if you were to pinpoint like one category where you would see a $500 difference where the Ultra would flex, you would assume it's going to be on the camera side. It's got that space zoom 100 times, it's peak Samsung optics. Let's start with just taking normal photos outside. How does it look in regular light? And it looks beautiful. You know, Samsung's images tend to be a bit higher contrast. The colors look a little brighter. To some eye, they've been described as looking a little more processed. I tend to like the way those photos look, but there's a lot of detail here. But the big story is obviously like that space zoom, right? We did a whole video zooming in on balloons, and it is nice to have. When you go into 100 times, it looks, I don't know how else to describe it than like, it looks like an oil painting. It's not overly useful, but it is there. And I think what's useful about it is not the 100 times, but going to 50 times is really nice to have, and 30 times. And the lower you go, the more useful it can be. And at, that 10 to 20 times, those pictures are still very usable. And if there's ever been an area where I think most people would agree OnePlus had to step up their game, it was cameras. You've always heard the knock on OnePlus, incredible software, blistering speed, but the cameras, I just wish they'd be a little bit better. What appears that OnePlus has listened, and they clearly put a lot of effort into not only the hardware that they put into these phones, but also the processing that's being done. Because the images look very close to what we get out of the S20 Ultra. To my eye, I really like the way those look. So I did see a difference in low light, but not quite like night mode territory. The S20 Ultra tended to take better pictures, less noise than I had with the OnePlus. But when it did get to like close to pitch black and situations where you'd want to use that night mode, OnePlus did a better job. And just having this conversation that both of these are really good, I think is a huge victory for OnePlus. Video is also an increasingly important component of the camera systems. What I found kind of interesting with video was that it's almost the opposite of what we saw with the stills. The OnePlus HDR in video seems to be really aggressive with the saturation and contrast. And the S20 Ultra is kind of a bit flatter, but the color still remains. It doesn't look as processed to my eye. If the zoom is worth it to you, then you're gonna wanna spend that extra money to have that flexibility and options. But I think the subset of people who care that much about zoom that also have an extra 500 bucks laying around is going to be small. And I think that itself is a huge win for OnePlus. The Samsung cameras are probably better than what you get with the OnePlus 8 Pro, but that gap has been narrowed so much. Then you factor in the $500 difference. And this comes out as a pretty strong case for the OnePlus 8 Pro. So this is probably one of the coolest ad breaks that I've ever had the opportunity to take. This is WeVPN. It's not just a regular VPN. It's a VPN that's close to my heart because I'm a part owner of it. And I want to be a part of it because I was looking for a VPN that provided kind of unparalleled security, access to all the main streaming platforms out there, unblocking things like Amazon, Netflix, BBC, iPlayer, all the stuff that you would want to watch that maybe aren't available in your area, while also giving you that security and peace of mind that VPNs give you, while being really affordable. If you're looking for a VPN that can give you all of those things and the peace of mind of a VPN while giving you unlimited bandwidth, there's no logging, we're not collecting any personal information. This is as secure as a VPN can be for the most affordable price in the industry. You're supporting me because I'm a part owner, but also you're getting access to what I believe is the best value and best product in the VPN industry. So hope you guys enjoy. I'll link to it again down below. It's wevpn.com. I want to spend a decent amount of time talking about displays, and I've mentioned this in a ton of videos. This is probably the most important category to me personally. So let's start with Samsung. So it's a 6.9-inch QHD Plus panel, and it is absolutely, I'm gonna say breathtakingly beautiful on the S20 Ultra. It gets plenty bright in outdoor sunlight, which is really nice. As somebody who wears polarized glasses, I've had a lot of issues with Samsung phones in the past. The S20 line, I don't have any weird rainbow effect with that, so that was really nice to have. Colors bright and vibrant, and it's OLED of course. So the 120 Hertz is capped at full HD+, and I opted to have that setting because I really like the faster refresh rate. And certainly there is a battery drain to be made. But it's interesting for Samsung, a company that's really been known for giving users choice, to take that choice away from folks here with the S20 line of phones. So OnePlus has traditionally gone with low resolution displays to save battery life. They have stepped up the game incredibly when it comes to display, and this is kind of a similar discussion that we had when it came to camera. So it's slightly smaller at 6.7 inches QHD+, and it's got that same 120 Hertz refresh, but OnePlus is giving you that choice that Samsung didn't. If you want to run it at a full resolution, you can do that. Of course, you will take the subsequent battery hit that goes along with it. And the same things I said with the Samsung echo here as well. No issues with polarized glasses, beautifully bright in outdoors. Blacks are black, colors are bright and vibrant. Interesting design choice that OnePlus made with their display is the waterfall display, when it kind of curves over the side. And aesthetically looking at the phone, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful design choice. But in practical use, it takes away from the usability a little bit of the phone. I had accidental touches on the side when I'm holding it. Sometimes swiping wouldn't work, so I wouldn't have my finger all the way on the edge. I prefer a flatter display. While I do appreciate the beauty of their waterfall, I do think it took away from the functionality of what is an absolutely otherwise beautiful display. This is a choice question, right? If you want to run your phone at full resolution, 120 Hertz, then right now, the OnePlus 8 Pro is going to be the way to go. If you want perhaps the best overall, best screen calibration that's available, then Samsung is still gonna probably offer you the best well-rounded display. But the OnePlus 8 display is so awesome to look at, so amazing to use, and gives me so many more choices. For the first time that I think I've been doing a versus against a Samsung phone, I think I'm partial to what OnePlus is doing. Alright, so kind of a new category, authentication. They have two different technologies for in-screen fingerprint reader. The S20 line is using an ultrasonic, whereas OnePlus is using an optical. And always in my mind, I kind of viewed optical as a lesser technology, and I'm not sure why, but in practical use, it was interesting. On the ultrasonic side, much faster. It tended to unlock 9 out of 10 times and relatively quick. On the OnePlus side, it was noticeably faster than the S20 and worked pretty close to perfectly. So both of these phones are running the Snapdragon 865 and they're theoretically capable of most of the same things. Both have 5G support for varying flavors of it depending which carrier you decide to go with. Both support Wi-Fi 6, which is awesome. Both support voice over LTE. So those are the big categories, right? There are a lot of little things that make up the phone. I like to call them intangibles. The S20 Ultra brings a lot to the table. So this is the latest iteration of Samsung's One UI. There's still a lot of duplicate apps in there. There's secondary app stores sometimes to make things work. But it is a really nice interpretation of Android. I think it's really clean where things are located. They've added a lot of settings and options that you don't get in stock Android 10. So on the flip side, you've got Oxygen OS. And I think that Oxygen OS is perhaps the best interpretation of Android of any manufacturer out there. I really like the stock Android look and feel, but there's been some tweaks that have improved what you get with Android 10, and that's kind of what Oxygen OS is. It's close to stock Android with some improvement. So battery life is also a huge one, right? You've got a 5,000 milliamp hour battery in the S20 Ultra and a little bit bigger than 4,500 in the OnePlus 8 Pro. And I will say when it came to the OnePlus 8, the 120 Hertz did take a big knock on battery. I was expecting a little bit better with battery life. It's still a full day phone, but it's like barely a full day phone. Your usage may totally vary. And I did get that slightly longer battery life with the Samsung Galaxy S20, the extra 500 milliamp hours while process pushing a few extra pixels for the larger screen, still got me easily through a day with about 10 to 15% more than what I had on the OnePlus. All right, so wireless charging is finally something that I can talk about with both phones. Samsung's had it for a really long time, and they were amongst the first to offer reverse wireless charging, and that is awesome to have as well. The bigger story though is probably on the OnePlus side. It's the first time they've offered wireless charging, and it's Qi compatible, which is great, but they also have an $80 accessory that enables 30 watt wireless charging, which is insane. And reverse wireless charging also here, slightly slower than Samsung at 3 watts. And IP rating, just like wireless charging, it's nice to have this conversation now with OnePlus. Welcome to the party. Both phones IP68 water certified. So the OnePlus 8 Pro starts at about $900, and OnePlus has gotten a lot of heat for taking their phones that high up market. And I asked OnePlus why they did that. You know, why have a really expensive Pro line? And they told me they wanted a phone that could compete with the best of the mobile world. And the best of the mobile world right now is the Galaxy S20 Ultra, and that's kind of why I picked the Ultra as opposed to the other phones in the Samsung line for this test. And there's a big price difference here. When you just take the MSRP and deals and sales out of the equation, about $500 separate the starting prices of these two phones. And there are only a few situations where I could say you're better off going with what Samsung is offering. If that zoom is really important to you, if you want to always have that zoom functionality, if you want a more versatile camera array and you have an extra $500 in your pocket, then you're going to be very happy with the S20 Ultra. If you can get an S20 Ultra at a discount, you're going to be very happy. But at retail price, despite being expensive, you are getting a lot of phone for the OnePlus 8 Pro. And they've answered a lot of the concerns that people have had. You now have a really capable camera array. You've got wireless charging. You've got an IP rating here. You've got a lot of things that folks have been asking for in a OnePlus phone. But a lot of those things come with a cost. and that's why the phones have progressively gotten more expensive. If both these phones could be had for the same price, the outcome here might have been different. But taking both of these as a $1,400 versus $900 phones, I'm going for the OnePlus 8 Pro.